What a beautiful campus.
I'd like to call the October board meeting to order. As a reminder, this board meeting will be held as a committee of the whole. Therefore, all members will vote on each recommended action. Our system representative colleagues who serve on the standing committees may also vote on matters that usually come before the committees that they serve on. As always, our meeting is being currently streamed live, and just be aware of those microphones. This is your microphone. No, just I have a microphone. So don't worry about what I was just saying. Speak loudly. And so, Ms. Doreen, will you do the roll call, please, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Regent Aubry, Regent Creed, here. Regent Davies, here. Regent Ewing,
Here.
Regent Finley, here. Regent Gill,
Here.
Regent Levy, here. Regent May, Regent Meir,
Present.
Regent Pryor,
Here.
Regent Steele, Regent Solomon,
Here.
Regent Sterling, here. Regent Temple,
Here.
Regent Wild, Regent Williams Brown,
Here.
LCTCS system,
Here.
LSU system,
Here.
Southern system, UL system. Mr. Chairman, you have a report.
Thank you, Doreen. The next item on our agenda is public comments. Do we have any, Ms. Doreen? No? Okay. So, members, you've received a copy of the minutes from our September 20th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? So moved. So moved. Motion made by Levy, seconded made by Meir. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Members, I'd like to take time and again thank Regent David for hosting us last night at his amazing home. We have been talking about how amazing the house is, the tree in the back, right? And his wife are. Not so much him, but that's okay. It was a fun evening. Higher education, partners, stakeholders, your hospitality, man, phenomenal. Not surprising though, but thank you. Thank you for that. I also want to thank President Savoy for his team hosting us. Savoy. I should know that. I have cousins named Savoy from Edgard. So I should
His
know
brother
that.
is a judge. He judged
Right, yeah. As well as Chancellor June yesterday at SLCC, presentation of he, as well as all of the other folks that we had the opportunity to hear from, was really amazing. I truly enjoyed the tour today, and really look forward to seeing that lab school come up. This region is clearly in sync with what we're doing as a board and attempting to get to that 2030 number. And we have truly enjoyed seeing the examples up close that 2 days have allowed us to do. It's always great when we can, once again, be on campuses and get the opportunity to, kind of experience, interact a little bit with the students to a certain extent and the faculty. So, Sam, you're up, man. Your report.
All righty. Well, I would like to say that this has been a very, very enjoyable time. I was walking around the house last night at Regent Davids and just kind of thinking, and I was like, wow, this is phenomenal to be able to do this. I got to speak to Dr. Savoy a lot and Dr. Jimmy Clark, and it was just really, really good to have that opportunity. COS will be returning to ULL November 4th. That'll be hosted by Mr. Colby Abear back there. I believe it is his birthday as well. So he will be hosting us, and we are very excited to see what we're going to do there, and it's going to be awesome. Pivoting to the UL system, I think I might have said this before, but UNO does have a new president hired, Dr. Kathy Johnson, who is replacing Dr. John Nicolo. The president of Law Tech, Dr. Les Geis, announced his retirement effective December 31st, and there will be a special board meeting October 25th in which Dr. Jim Henderson will interview with the board for the Law Tech president position. All of our campuses have submitted their spending plans for the use of the mental health funds that have been awarded from DHH through the Board of Regents. Our campuses have really great ideas on how they're going to use this funding to expand the counseling centers and promote mental health awareness and education on their campuses. The UL System's annual Title IX Summit is scheduled for November 1st and 2nd on Southeastern's campus. The summit's focus is to create a space for sharing of programs, trainings, resources, and lessons learned in creating a coordinated community response to sexual violence with our member institutions. Additionally, participants will gain knowledge about the breadth of Title IX, including areas such as gender equity and athletics. Continuing, we have the LSU system. LSU Baton Rouge is in their homecoming week. They are looking at streamlining communication of student resources, likely through a glossary and AI that students can interact with either interface. They are also investigating how to expand knowledge of mental health and academic resources to students. LSU Health Sciences New Orleans is beginning their strategic planning to guide progress over the next 5 years. We recently had a town hall led by our interim counselor with a recap of recent achievements and updates about upcoming and future endeavors. And the LSU Board of Supervisors has a new chairman, Mr. Jimmy Woods, who assumed the position in September. And I have no updates from the Southern LCTCS system. Thank y'all.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the report. So, you all, we know it's homecoming at ULL this weekend. It was homecoming at Southern last weekend. And you all see our commissioner was the grand marshal, and that blue sequin outfit, it's not a jacket, it's the whole outfit, right? So it was a phenomenal opportunity for her to once again get the opportunity to interact. Homecoming at Southern is a time-honored tradition for alumni, students, members, you know, just like homecoming probably at any institution. But the Jaguars from all over the nation flocked to the Bluff, celebrated excellence, pride, and the tradition of SU. So we know you had a great time, Commissioner, and you know, go Jags, go Jag Nation. So nominating committee members at our October meeting. Each year we kind of announce a nominating committee. And going into next year, we you know, start kind of move around a little bit, play musical chairs. So, you know, the nominating committee has charged us to bring a recommended slate of officers during the December meeting for the board's consideration and ultimate approval. And the members who are being, who I'm appointing to the nominating committee are to chair the committee, Blake David, Robert Levy, Darren Meir, Felix Weil, and Miss Judy Williams-Brown. So I hope that you all will all accept that. And obviously, we made you aware of it. And thank you all for your willingness to serve. And my remarks are concluded. So, our master plan. You all should have gotten this in the mail, even though we also got it in a previous meeting, but we got another copy in the mail. And our next agenda item on the master plan, last month we celebrated attaining 49.5. Dr. Denley went through some numbers that we have, even in the midst of some challenging things that have been happening the last several years, we have continued to climb and getting to that 49.5, but obviously we still, in the next 6.5 years, 7 years, have to get to 60%. So we still got 10.5% left to get. And our campuses across the state are focused on implementing a series of proven practices through the Momentum Framework to help us get there. Today we'll hear from SLCC, how they're using the Momentum Framework to improve student access. And joining Dr. Denley are Courtney, what a perfect name. You all, this is Courtney Schoolmaster. That is really her name, Schoolmaster. Thank you for that. Assistant Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs. And now, y'all, my name is Collis, C-O-L-L-I-S. And before I'm looking at this, I know how people mess our name up. And I'm about to mess yours up.
Okay.
So will you say it for me? Mr. DuPont.
Khalees, like Khalees Road.
Khalees.
Pronounced the same way.
Right, so my name with an E.
Yep.
Or maybe my name is your name without an E. Easy, easy.
Potato, potato.
Khalees. I like that. Okay, that's first, probably only Khalees you know, right?
Besides my great grandpa.
Oh, okay. There you go. There you go. That's great. So he is the Executive Director of Enrollment Services at SLCC. And thank you both for joining Dr. Denley today, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, well, so thank you. So this is a new item for our board. As we were thinking about all of this momentum work, it just seemed as though it was really important for the board to hear from the people who are really actually doing the work. We talk a lot about the fact that the reality is the Board of Regents doesn't graduate a single student. We don't. That's not our role. We have other roles, but there are people who really do. And so we really wanted to make sure that there was a forum where you could hear from those who are really doing this work, the ways in which they're knitting together the initiatives that are part of the Momentum Framework. So this is hopefully a new fixture on the board agenda that we want to have a momentum moment moving forward, where you'll hear from campuses who are doing their work. So with no further ado, I'll hand over to Courtney and Khalees. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as you know, the Momentum Framework has 3 foundational strands and 4 structural threads. And the thread that we're going to focus on today is our pathways thread. So SLCC started focusing on pathways around 2015, but it wasn't actually until we've got some momentum from the Board of Regents that we were able to push it to the next level and the results that we're seeing today. So one of the big things that we've been working on, obviously, is co-requisite math and English. And we've got, we had a one-tier system where the students could come into the program and do their college level course with a supplementary course, but we were only pulling from that top tier, right? So if a student had a 17 or an 18, they were just shy of making it into a full college level class, we asked them to join this. We didn't get a lot of momentum with it though, because any of you who have apprehension about math or English know that students are more inclined to put themselves in the lower level than to put themselves into the higher level. So one of the things that we were able to really do this year is focus on using the policy changes that you guys did to push our momentum strategies forward. So now we have a lower level class for students to score below a certain part on the ACT, and then we've got our top tier ACT students that are not quite college ready yet, right, who are going to be in that upper level class. And a lot of the small tweaks that we've been making, you don't realize it from an academic standpoint, but from a student standpoint, just changing the way in which we did our placement chart to make it just really easy for a student to follow across. We've gotten such great feedback from them and how it's easy for them to figure out where they've got to go. We put bells. It seems silly, but they're just little alert bells that say these 2 classes or these 3 classes are the most important classes. You need to get these classes done right away. And so some of the changes that we've done have actually shown that compared to the traditional model of a student taking developmental and then taking college level, we've seen a 24% increase in our co-requisite English students and a 21% increase in our math students successfully completing that college level course.
That's good.
And this is the one I'm super excited about because this is the data that just came out from this year. So in fall of 22, our English course, only 58% of our first-time freshmen were completing that course within their first semester. Now we have 76% of our students completing it in the first semester.
Wow. That's great.
And then I don't know what happened with math there, but we went from 44% to 67%. And if you've been tracking the literature, that kind of momentum that they're gaining by doing those introductory courses first and their foundational elements that are impacting their grades in their psychology courses, impacting their grades and completing in their majors and so forth.
And so one of the things that we also took to the next level over the last couple of years is we took these resources that the academic side has helped us develop, and we then on the enrollment side now focus a little bit more on intrusive advising than we did during our COVID years. So what we've re-implemented are what we call our Student Success Lives at SLCC. And these are mini 2-hour orientations where every single one of those graphics that you just saw is put into a folder for those students. We then, during these sessions, explain the co-rec model to these students. And every first-time freshman, returning, and transfer student is required to go through this process, where we then, as you can see in the pictures here, assist every single one of these students with their pathway and what classes they need to register in, so there's no confusion in that. And as you can see, our numbers of full-time enrollment has increased from fall of 2022 to fall of 2023 by 14% since we started doing this. And our credit hours have increased by 4.4%. So our students are also not just on the right pathways, but they're getting enough classes to finish in a timely manner, as well as completing these co-recs.
That's great. Well, look, I'm sure you're as thrilled as I am to see these kinds of results. This is exactly the kind of thing which we really want to celebrate. So a huge congratulations to you for this wonderful work you're doing. Does the board have any questions that anybody want to ask?
That the level that I guess what's the first level of math? Can we turn all of them on?
So college algebra is the college level math.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have 2 support courses. So depending on where you fall, if you're at the lower tier in your ACT, you're going into our first level support course, but you're doing one or the other. You're not coming back and doing another support course the next year.
Gotcha.
We just the faculty. This was a faculty decision to decide what the 2 levels were. They felt that they could concentrate better if the skill sets were a little more standard across the boards than trying to deal with someone who had a 12 on their ACT and someone who had an 18.
Gotcha.
And in the folder, as you can see, these graphics here in the folder, it actually outlines for the student which level they'll be in based off of different tests and placements that they have.
It's been maybe better than that. This completely aligns with that.
So go ahead.
I think I heard you say you were working in this co-requisite space a little bit, and then the momentum framework. Tell me about the transition and the result pre and post momentum framework.
So
Did I hear that?
That's a great question. So the initial is that we've got more kids going into college level classes earlier, right? Now, how successful they are, I need you to give me one more semester, because remember, it just went into effect this fall, so I need to see where they are at the end of the semester to be able to tell you, right? But I'm an early advocate of the framework, which is why I was actually department chair when we started it in 2015. Like, it doesn't just impact them in this first semester. You're going to see students are going to score higher in those second semester and third semester classes, and they're going to complete versus kids that start in developmental. And a lot of times the kids starting in developmental, like, I was not a good test taker. I'm gonna be honest, it's on record here. I got a 19 on my ACT, right? That's not a great score, right? That everyone's gonna rave about, and it probably should have put me in developmental, but that wasn't a thing, right, when I went to college. So I didn't get that kind of support, so I probably struggled more my first semester. These kids have an entire 3 hours a week in which they're getting support that's beyond how to do 2+2. It's, hey, how are your classes going? Did you see with a tutor yet? Are you having any food insecurities? Can we help you, So it's really a comprehensive look. So I don't expect to see any result different than what we did with our original. I just expect to see it on a much broader level. Yeah.
So in 2015, you were doing a smaller
We were averaging about 60 students a year.
I see.
Yeah. And now we went full board, and every student that's in a math class that didn't reach college level is in this.
Got it.
Yeah. English too, yeah.
Yeah, we're excited to track that.
Exactly.
And I just want to give a huge shout out to our department chairs who, the logistics of that many courses that are now doubled up it's a lot of work, and they just did an incredible job of making sure that we had enough courses for our students. Yeah.
Well, obviously, the results are extremely impressive. Thank you all for that. Any other questions? Okay, well,
Wait.
oh, yes.
Again, just want to commend, as the LCTCS board member,
This kind of thing is going on across our system. To give you an idea, within our workforce program and credential programs, we're using somewhat the same model. Students who need developmental, we're allowing to start into those welding classes and take these courses while they complete their developmentals, where the old model was you must go through 1, 2, 3 developmental courses. These are adult students, they're 27 years old average age, and they're completing these courses. They're completing their truck driving, their CDL, their whatever, because they have the motivation and they're completing their developmental. And then they wrap back around to get the base courses they need for their associate's degree. I want to commend Dr. June. Obviously, yesterday you heard him say that SLCC is the top-rated community college in Louisiana. What he didn't say, they're also rated as one of the top 150 community colleges in the nation by the Aspen Institute. So hats off to him. I represent the system, but I live in Lafayette.
You hold him back. You hold him back.
Thank you. So, thank you all. Appreciate that. Great information. Next agenda item is reports and recommendations. So we're going to start with finance and Deputy Commissioner in Finance Administration, Matthew Labriere, and Assistant Commissioner for Finance, Elizabeth Bentley Smith, will present these items. So first up, presentation of our proposed higher education budget for 24-25. Matthew, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This afternoon, I'll be presenting the FY 24-25 higher education budget request. The first slide is a snapshot of where we currently are in FY 24 with a almost $1.4 billion. Through our various formulas for 2-year, 4-year, specialized units, TOPS, the Go Grant survey, and then inflationary factors at the board level, the total cost to fund higher education in the state is estimated at $2.1 billion, which leaves a difference of just over $700 million that we would need to fully fund higher education in Louisiana. That is a very large number. So it is that we don't feel is appropriate to request. So our request is $272.8 million spread among the 2-year and 4-year institutions at 173, 24 million for specialized, 53 million at the board level, 6.5 million at top, and 15 million for Go. So what makes up that request? There's 3 areas within the request. There's institutional support, affordability, and targeted requests. So for institutional support, almost 185 million, which we're calling competitive advantage funding. When we compare ourselves to our southern peers among the 16 states that are in SRD, we lag the per capita funding by about $350 million. And so our request is a phased-in approach to get up to that number with $185 million this year, which we would plan to spend on $40 million for the 2-year institutions for workforce training, $40 million at the 4-year institutions for high demand fields, and $39 million for faculty pay increases. This would be a 4% increase, along with the remaining $65 million going towards the funding formula to reward outcomes at the 2-year and 4-year institutions. This goes along with a $13 million base increase request for the specialized institutions, which is about 4%. On the affordability side, the request includes $35 million for dual enrollment. Within the $35 million, there's a request to fund 1 course for 11th and 12th graders at public high schools, which is just around $33.7 million. We would also fund a grant program to high school teachers to make sure that they get the appropriate credit hours needed to teach at the high school level. along with training for the teachers, along with dual enrollment, the dual enrollment portal and the dual enrollment single application. So that is all within the $35 million dual enrollment request. For Go Grants, in the last couple of years, we've requested $15 million and have received it. So this is a continuation of those prior year requests to continue increasing. We're just at $75 million now, so this would get us to 90. We've increased with the help of the governor and the legislature. Go Grants has increased over $40 million in the last 3 years, so we want to continue that momentum. For TOPS, there's the current projection model for TOPS recommends a $6.5 million increase. This is based on 1,200 new students coming into TOPS. This is our best guess at it right now. We continue to update that model as we go through getting closer to session, so that number may change. And then $2.5 million for textbook affordability. This is becoming an annual request for us to allow Lewis to have open educational resources to bring down the cost of textbooks for students. And that way they don't have to pay as much. And finally, on the targeted request, we're requesting $5.3 million for cybersecurity data protection. This is adding to the increase we requested last year that we received for $7.5 million for cybersecurity protection with the security operations centers at each throughout the institutions and through Lonnie. This is for additional subscriptions that are needed to protect the institutions. There's $3 million for cybersecurity education grants to continue building a cyber workforce in the state. $2.5 million for adult basic education. And this would be funds that would go to LCTCS as they administer adult basic ed. They received the program for the Department of Education back in 2010, and the funding has remained the same since they received it. So this would be the first step in a multi-year request to increase that funding to get it up to a Southern average. There's a $2 million increase for momentum implementation. This would aid Dr. Denley's work in getting us to the 60% goal, along with the annual summits we do and other training that goes with that. A $1.5 million request for LOSPA for fiscal oversight. So over the last few years, LOSPA has received a lot more programs that they administer. This would help increase program staff and auditors to ensure program compliance. And then $600,000 for LUMCON. LUMCON is the most recent recipient of a national estuary program. And so there is a $400,000 match needed for that. It's a 25-75% matching rate. Louisiana was the only state along the coast that did not have this national estuary program. It'll be based in Morgan City. And so this is the request to get those matching funds along with a few other operating dollars for that. Going on to the next slide. This is a look at all the requests based on where we are with the $1.4 billion, and this would put us at a base of $1.66 billion if we were successful in receiving the entire request. That's the overview of the request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Can you refresh me on what is the $35 million for dual enrollment spent? Is that for instruction?
$7 million will fund students to receive a dual enrollment class. This is based on, through our work with the system CFOs, we've gone through trying to create a uniform pricing model for dual enrollment, which would be $300 for a general education course and $600 for a technical education course. So this money would be used to pay for the students at the institutions to receive dual enrollment.
So it's an incentive program as well?
Yes, sir.
I mean, okay, because they're already in school.
They are.
At high school.
Correct. And there's about 28,000 students that are taking dual enrollment now. This is based on 80% participation among public high school juniors and seniors. So roughly a little over 80,000 students receiving one class per year.
So Regent Ewing, you know we've been leaning into dual enrollment. What we hear from the campuses and certainly from the school districts is, how are you going to help us pay it? And today, some students receive dual enrollment at no cost because the school district pays, some the parent pays. So there's a mixture of how dual enrollment is funded in Louisiana. We want parity and opportunity, and the way to do that is to have a unified request. So we've talked to Kate Brumley, to members of Bessie's School Board, Superintendent's Association, and others to try to go together to say, let's have a request to use our funding model matched with what they do now in supplemental course allocation with MFP, which I think is $11 million or so, so that we have an opportunity to provide dual enrollment regardless of whether your parent can pay, regardless of your location in the state. So that's the goal.
It's not on a needs basis then, it's on everybody that applies or engages in the dual enrollment is eligible for that.
Would be eligible for it. LOSFA would administer it. It would run through the public institutions.
Goes to the school boards and then runs.
Right, through the right, exactly. So right now, as I mentioned, it's, you know, sort of a Wild West in terms of the funding for dual enrollment. But we know that students who participate in college and high school are more likely to go on, whether they go career technical education or academic. So we don't want students to fall through the cracks. We want them to start their early college experience in high school, whatever it is they're interested in. And so this is designed to help us do that.
Thank both of you.
Yes.
Any further?
Commissioner, and that would give each student one credit or one course, the 3 credits?
Right, so it would be an 80% funding model on this side and matched with the MFP dollars. So we don't want to supplant, we want them to keep bringing their dollars that they have in their funding model and then match it with ours. And so that we envision based on a scale of uptake, right? I don't think we go from 28,000 students to 80,000 students in 1 year, but it would allow us to scale up because we want to increase demand, but we need to make sure we have funding for it.
And also to get, I guess, exposure to the program, to these students.
Exposure to the program. You heard Matthew also mention we need to have more high school teachers who are qualified to teach dual enrollment. So we have several moving parts to try to get to where we want to go. Ultimately, we would love for every high school student to be on an early college path, regardless of what it is. If they're an apprenticeship, industry-based certification, pursuing academic programs, graduating with an associate degree from high school, every high school student on a path early.
And do we have any data that reflects what's the typical amount of credit hours received by those participants? Is it one course, or 3 hours, or 9 hours, or?
We do a dual enrollment report each year. I think we've done 2, so I'll send to you that information. We'll get a new report in December, Malin? We'll get a new report in December with the latest data. But we do look at what's the pattern, how many courses, what about private schools, what about special education students. So we look at the full picture of dual enrollment in the state. Sure.
And Regent Creed, I do want to add that along with the dual enrollment course offered, this goes along with the acceptance policy that the board passed for the number of hours you receive in dual enrollment, which you early acceptance into an institution. So the more we're able to provide for the students, the more institutions that they align with in enrollment.
Just so I'm clear, that's 3 credits per semester they take, or 3 credits?
So this would fund a course for the 11th grade and for the 12th.
So just one course?
One course to start.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If they took more, they'd pay out of pocket?
Yes, sir, but we're trying to figure out a funding model that sort of helps to address that.
How many students is this going to affect? Like, what's the statistic of the 11th and 12th grades in Louisiana?
So right now we serve 28,000 students. Matthew, I think, has the press release. So if we go to 80%, Matthew, you have it in front of you? Let me see if I have it.
Yeah, so So we base this on the latest data we have from LDOE. So we based it on the current 9th and 10th grade class, or the 9th and 10th grade classes from last year, which total 109,000. If 80% participated, that puts us at 87,000 students taking a dual enrollment course.
And right now, we're almost 29,000.
About a third. Okay. Great questions. Any further questions?
Can I also mention on the workforce piece, I know you all we've had some significant conversations about that. So you see a dual request there. Last year we had a $40 million request for workforce, non-credit, 2-year, with some formula for allocation of that. And then we have high demand fields as well. Dr. Salva today showed us nursing, there's a shortage of teachers, we need more STEM, more cyber experts. So we're trying to say we need more operating dollars for our institutions. We certainly need to continue to retain our great faculty, but we also want some targeted dollars to say, here are some very high demands. So let's see how we can address those. So I just wanted to make sure to hit that, because I know in the budget hearings, you heard from President Tate talking about cyber and their Pentagon approach. You heard Monty talking about the non-credit piece. You heard the representatives for the UL system talking about shortage areas, as well as Southern. So we have some very specific needs in the state, and we need to be able to lean into those. But legislatively, what we have found, and Dr. June or Dr. Salva can speak to this, there is a lot of interest always in the legislature funding initiatives. What the institutions need are operating expenses so they can keep moving the mission and the agenda forward. And so we have to try to balance that. So you see that here in a sort of a 2-step approach of this competitive advantage funding. It's 347 million. So we've asked for it split in 2 years. But hopefully we'll be able to make the case effectively for driving funding formula increases as opposed to so many individual one-offs. So I just wanted to sort of put a bow around that, because that is both a fiscal policy conversation but also a legislative strategy conversation that we will continue to have.
Great insight, great questions. Is there a motion to approve the State General Fund operating budget request for all of higher education boards for fiscal year 24-25? LCTCS, motion made by LCTCS, second by David, Regent David. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Moving on to facilities and property. Mr. Chris Herring, Associate Commissioner of Facilities and Planning and Emergency Management, will guide us through these items. I was walking with him earlier on the tour, and he was just letting me know they got so much stuff going on here, I can't even keep up with all of it, which is obviously a great thing. So, Chris, the floor is yours. First is consent agenda, so go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. The first item we have this month is the consent agenda, which contains a handful of small capital projects and one third-party project that's been approved by staff since the last facilities committee meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we'd recommend approval of the consent agenda.
Okay. That was quick. That's it? All right. Go ahead, Sam.
What is the process for an institution to request these small capital project fundings?
So they typically will start off at the institutional level. Just say, for instance, ULL had a $600,000 grant to upgrade the softball field and whatnot. They would send it into their system office for approval, and then the system office completes a 2-page template that we have that just basically provides project scope and budgetary information and sends it to us, and then I take a look at it and approve it and get it back to them, and then they're able to move forward. And the whole idea is to not there's such small projects in the grand scheme of things that we don't want to slow those down. And the legislature is statutorily provided us the ability to do that and allow the institutions to move forward. So it's basically handled internally by staff within our office as well at each system office.
Chris, let him know the dollar amount.
The dollar amount, so.
It has to be under.
It has to be under $1 million. The construction cost has to be under $1 million. An institution can pursue a project like that under $1 million. And then there's a caveat between $1 million and $10 million, but that requires our board approval. It also has to go to JLCB. If there cannot be state dollars used on those state dollars on the projects, there's several more hoops for those larger projects, but that was increased from 5 to 10 million during the last legislative session.
Okay, so members, you've heard the recommendations of senior staff. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda? Regent David, second. Regent Solomon. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Next item is the fiscal year 24-25 capital outlay budget. Chris, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Again, this is the 24-25 capital outlay budget recommendation that the Regents we're asking for approval, that we will in turn submit to the Division of Administration for legislative consideration during the upcoming session. The chart shows a summary of the projects being recommended for fiscal year 25. We received 236 projects, 236 projects, I think, across all our higher ed. So out of that number, we're recommending 88 of those projects. 76 of the 88 are ongoing. They have received funding either this most recent legislative session or in a previous legislative session, or either under some form of design, or there's a handful already under construction, so the funding would sustain the construction. There are 12 projects that are new, being that they have not received any funding just yet. 5 of those 12 were in the bill this year, but they were not appropriated in a manner that would allow them to move forward with any cash this year. So there are a handful of new projects. I would like to point out too that the Bond Commission is meeting tomorrow to authorize cash lines of credit, which would reduce the continuing project amount by approximately $93 million. And then another $100 million of that number represents the Board of Regents ask for deferred maintenance for next fiscal year, which typically or recently has been funded out of surplus dollars and not capital outlay bill funding. So in reality, the total will be closer to $800 million. The request would be, which again, as we discussed last month, is over the state's bonding capacity, not just for higher ed, but for all the state. So it's going to be a challenge moving forward to simply keep the projects going that we have going now.
So that 104, that's that. I mean, that's what you're talking about right there, right? The 104 next to Board of Regents?
Right. Well, some of it, the 100 is for deferred maintenance, and there was a request from Lonnie to do some fiber construction associated with the work they do. Makes up the other 4 million.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
So Chris is mentioning the Bond Commission because in the event the Bond Commission does vote tomorrow as expected, then he would need permission in the approval for the board to allow him to update the list.
Gotcha.
So the document that was sent to you all is shaded with those items that are up for consideration tomorrow. Sequencing and time, they're meeting after us, and so we need to anticipate that they may indeed approve those items, that they're on the agenda for approval. So we want you to not only ask questions and hopefully approve this, but also know that in the motion is a request for us to also update based on tomorrow. We legally have a requirement to submit the budget and the capital outlay to the Commissioner of Administration by November 1st on behalf of the Board of Regents. So we won't meet again.
We're out of sequence.
We're out of sequence with the Bond Commission. So we won't meet again before we're legally required to submit the list. So if the Bond Commission acts as expected tomorrow, we will send you an updated list. But today we're going to ask for your caveat to approve the list and allow staff to update the list in the event the Bond Commission meets tomorrow and approves these items. or when they meet tomorrow and approve the item.
How much is the capital outlay budget oversubscribed? Do you know?
I think Commissioner Darden said 300 million oversubscribed. So we had, I think, 33 projects up for consideration at Bond Commission. Chris and I went to meet with Commissioner Darden and asked for, on behalf of higher ed, that they consider all of our projects. And so I believe 20 of our projects, is that right, Chris, are up for consideration tomorrow out of 33. But as he mentioned in our budget hearing for the board, the capital outlay is 300 million plus oversubscribed.
So he made a choice, the administration made a choice of those 33, which 13 not to put through in order to hack away the 300 million oversubscription.
Yes, they sent us their list of what they recommended. We advocated for all. They said, here's what we're advocating for. So.
Correct, and some of those, there was, a lot of them either had, maybe they weren't ready necessarily to spend that money this current fiscal year. There were some that were going to require a commitment from the incoming administration to move forward. So it wasn't just like we're just cherry picking the projects. They had a basis for why they didn't choose all of them, primarily with the exception of one in Ruston, I think.
So what happens, I'm sorry, capital outlay is always so confusing. What happens with those that were in that $300 million? Where do those projects that were committed, do they roll back into next year automatically? Or do you start from?
The 13 that weren't selected?
Yeah, for
the
example.
13 that weren't selected, are they on our list?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And those should move forward because those are actually under design or design is upcoming if they get a commitment from the new administration. So, I mean, it can really, I guess they could go either way, but I'd be surprised to see those 13 not move forward. Now, if somebody got an appropriation this year and they haven't started design and it's in the initial stages, it's possible, you know, say if they got the $300,000 in cash and 30 million in a non-cash line of credit, it could possibly not move next year, could not appear in the bill next year. So you have to look at it kind of on a project by project basis. So I guess it's the best answer.
And the 300 million over commitment was in the priority one, right?
Yes.
300 oversubscribed, yes.
Right, priority 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then so the things that were in 5, for example, where do they go? Do they end up in the bill automatically again next year, or do they just fall off entirely?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It depends really on the project.
Okay.
There's no movement on it. It could potentially fall off. But usually, if they have any level of investment, it typically will move forward. And it's all based on cash flow. They'll have to consider cash flow as they move into next year, because a lot of times institutions will say, well, we need $30 million for this project next year. But in reality, by the time the session rolls around, it's possible that because the project's been delayed or whatnot, that maybe they don't need 30, they may need 15, and that frees up some of the capacity as well.
I see. Okay, thank you so much.
Regent Levy.
Chris, as chairman of this committee, and as we have discussed, would you be able to prepare for us a comprehensive report on the capital outlay for our board?
Yes, sir. We were asked to put together a report showing the amount of funding appropriated over the, I'll probably take a 10-year period of appropriations, show the, compared to our recommendation relative to what actually receives a line of credit over that period. So I'll be happy to put that together.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, you've heard those recommendations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Regent Levy, second.
Second.
Regent Finley, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll move to the Academic and Student Affairs. One and only Dr. Tristan Denley, Deputy Commissioner of Academic Affairs and Innovation, will present these items. Dr. Denley, our first item is the consent agenda. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yes, so this afternoon we have a very standard consent agenda, just routine staff approvals, some name changes and some program consolidations, and then also a request from UNO to create some new academic options. Actually, this is their request is really to bring their current curriculum in line with board policy. So senior staff recommends the approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, so you all have heard the recommendation, members. Motion to approve. Rishan David, second, LCTCS representative. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Members, I'm looking forward to the report on the state's new MJ Foster adult financial aid program, and we talked about how this program will provide workforce training opportunities in high demand fields, kind of like working age adults who haven't earned a degree, which is a huge target for our 2030 goal, that group of people. So, Dr. Denley, how are things working with that program?
Yeah, I think we're off to a great start. This is, as you say, this is the very first year of this program. The legislature appropriated $10.5 million exactly to support this, as you said. People who need to get a credential to really change their lives and the lives of their families in important ways. And so in this first year, there were 1,192 students who were supported by funds from the MJ Foster program. Altogether, that was right at around $2.7 million. As well as those 1,100 and some odd students, there were about another 1,000 students who actually applied for the MJ Foster scholarship, but when they actually got packaged, so the MJ Foster scholarship is a last dollar scholarship as it was originally created. And so those other 1,000 students, when they actually applied for their financial aid package, there was no aid left in their tuition to receive MJ Foster funds. So altogether, roughly 2,000 students, if you will, they applied for MJ Foster, and some received funds, and others, they came back to college, but they received those funds from other Title IV eligible sources or other kinds of funds. So what I want to do is to kind of walk through a little bit, and as you say, this is the first time we've done this, and so maybe I'll take a little more time than I otherwise would, to just kind of go through to give you some of the high points of what it is that we found out about how the MJ Foster program is working. The bottom line of it is what I'm going to show you seems to suggest that the funds are exactly going to the students that it was hoped would receive the funds. That we're really seeing MJ Foster Promise students, those funds going to, for instance, so this is a summary of those recipients by race and by gender. You can see that that altogether, so for those of you who are keeping track of this, I want to make sure you see this. I said 1,192. You'll see there 1,188 students all told. So there were 4 students in the data set that it's unclear that we were not able to classify them by race, gender, or age just because of the way the data was. So that's not a data error. It's just trying to take care of the details. But you can see that overwhelmingly, so 80% of the students were women, which is, I think, an interesting finding. But among the men, actually the majority of the men who were funded were African American men. And so certainly very exciting to see African American men enrolling in college in increasing numbers. This has been something that we've really been trying to do, but certainly happy to see the support all across racial groups. Similarly, MJ Foster program is really aimed at returning adults. Now, adults come in all ages, at least 25, but all ages. But certainly very exciting to see that actually most of the recipients were over the age of 30. So a good population in their 20s, but a really good population in 30s and beyond. So actually very exciting to see people coming back to college in their 30s and beyond. And also really looking to see if we could help people who were from lower income families. And again, you can see 60% of the people who received funds actually earned less than, or had family income of less than $30,000. Interestingly enough, if you look at those first two combined, so that's 81% of the people who received funds had a family income of less than $50,000. That's an important number here in Louisiana because that actually aligns with the ALICE sustainability income for a family of four. So the fact that 80% of those funds went to people whose family income was below the sustainability range for a family of four, I think is a really important finding. So that's when it comes to recipients. I also want to show you a little about the picture of those who earned credentials, right? Because it's part of it is about getting people to come back to college. We want them to come back to college so they'll earn credentials. Right. We want to finish. Yeah. And so of those, roughly 1,200 odd students who received funds, 199 credentials were awarded to 188 students. So, and I think there's some really interesting things to see in there. So 115 of those credentials were completed in less than a year. So one of the really important things about the MJ Foster program is this is really the first state scholarship program which was able to support students who were taking workforce training kinds of programs, not only for credit programs, but also short-term so-called non-credit programs. I hate describing things about what they're not, but right now we still don't have a really good nomenclature for these kinds of programs. But yeah, so 115 of those credentials were sure enough completed within that year, and I think that's exciting to see. But also exciting to see that 84 of the credentials were associate and diploma programs. Clearly, those students didn't begin, just out of the blue and begin a program and finish it in that year. They were programs that took a little longer, and just on the next slide, I think I'll be able to show you what that looks like. But those 84 people who finished their diploma and associate degree programs. So what's fascinating is that the time to degree for those programs is just really striking. So the average time to degree across our system for an associate program is it's in the range of 4 to 5 years. The average time to degree for the people who just finished those associate's degrees with MJ Foster was 8.9 years. 8.9 years. And what that says to me is these were people who have been trying to finish their degree for a long time, and they needed that extra support. They needed that one last piece to actually finish it out. Same kind of thing happening on the diploma side. So the fact that the time to degree for the MJ Foster recipients of associate and diploma programs were much longer than our system average, that's not a fault, that's a feature. And I think a really exciting feature for us to see. When you look at those completers, again, most of the completers were African American women, which I think is exciting to see. And when we look at the programs that they completed in, you can see how those programs that were being completed mesh with, the last time I sat in front of you, I was saying, we need more people who work in health professions. Well, and 149 of those credentials were exactly in health professionals. These are LPNs, these are CNAs, these are exactly the kinds of people that hospitals need to be able to fill the needs that we have across the state. So exciting to see that. So happy to answer any questions that you have about the MJ Foster program, but certainly recommend your acceptance and approval of this report and approval for it to be submitted to the legislature. Yes, sir.
We will only get credit in our master plan for those who get a credential. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. So all of the credentials that I've mentioned today, they all count towards our 60% goal. Yes, sir.
So the emphasis needs to be on really trying to get people to complete.
Yes.
Even though this is a population that has a hard time completing because many of them are working.
Yes.
They already have families. What is your projection about our success level there? I know I listened to your report, and I'm happy about the things we have done, but if you've got 188 and you had 2,100 in, or was it 1,200? 1,200.
Yeah.
That's not a very good percentage.
So I think, we will know substantially more throughout this year about what it is that's happening around these programs. The reality is that some of those students are sure enough taking short-term credentials. They are completing those quickly, they're completing them and getting out the door. And I think as people realize those opportunities, more and more people will be availing themselves of those opportunities. It's also the case that some of the programs that people were enrolling in, they take longer than a year. And so we won't see that finishing out until this year or perhaps the next. So as we gradually, as the years work through, we will see substantially more. For instance, we will know more early in the new year when we get our detailed enrollment report to see how many of the students, sure enough, actually came back and were still part and parcel of those studies. I agree. We want to see more people earn those credentials.
Well, it's indicative of everything's going on in our whole community college program. And if we're not doing more than 20% that are getting credentials out of there, we've got a lot of work to do. And the vehicle is there.
Yeah, and so
and the finances are there.
So as you say, the powerful realization, I think, in this report, and actually also when we look at completion across our community colleges, is that the way we normally go about measuring success was never designed for those students. So, for instance, when we look at federal graduation rates, we look within a 6-year window. I actually went and ran these numbers quite recently for our community colleges. When we look at those graduation rates, we only look traditionally in a 3-year window. We only look at students who begin and end at the same institution. We only look at students who begin as brand new freshmen. That only actually encompasses about 1 in 10 of the students who actually successfully complete from LCTCs. Because so many of them either take longer than that window, or stop out along the way, or finish from a different place, or were not enrolled full-time, or changed to part-time. So all of those kinds of things, then, because of the way in which this success metric nationally has been set up, mean that those students don't get counted in that statistic. Their completions get counted just the same. They are people who sure enough have a credential, but it took longer, or their journey didn't exactly mesh what it is that metric anticipates, and so consequently we don't see them in that metric. That's a problem of the metric. It's not a problem of the education, but it's also the case, and it's important, we have to understand how to help people to stay in the game, and I think that's what's exciting about this new approach, because I'm really excited to see people finishing associate's degrees that took an average of 8.9 years. There's some persistence there, and I think that persistence is rightly rewarded.
Well, I want to clarify, the 1,200 who received an award, 200 completed, the other 1,000 didn't drop out.
No, that's right.
So I don't want to leave the impression that we lost 1,000 students. They're still in their programs. Their programs just took longer. And to put on my Monty Sullivan hat, you have 200 people who are now paying taxes in the system that were not paying taxes before. So you'll see more completers out of that 1,000 students. It's just taking them longer because they're in longer programs.
The problem is finding a definite time that you make your measure, isn't it?
So I do think that this idea of, the reason we don't look at graduation rate is Tristan's point. We look at completers, because we say if you finish, you count. Not if you start in the fall and you finish in the fall and it's 3 years. If you finish, you count. But what I think is interesting about a couple of things about the report I think are interesting. You had 80-some people who were on the way, struggling to finish, and along comes an adult financial aid program and they say, sign me up, and they finished, right? So that's the power of financial aid. You have interest in healthcare, right? They're trying to go into places that are high demand. You have a lot of women. You look at the number of women versus men. Still in higher education in this country, we're asking the question, where are the men? Period. White males, black males, Hispanic males, where are the males? So we have work to do there. But I want to think about what we heard yesterday about the care network and the amount of work it takes to take someone, as you mentioned, Regent Ewing, who has family, an aging family member, child care issues, transportation challenge, and we say, hey, guess what? We have a new adult financial aid program, and they say, well, if I could just squeeze in a little time, I'd do it. But it's not just the glossy brochure about the financial aid and the interest in healthcare that gets a student who's challenged to an institution. It's much more than that. And I think that's the realization for us as higher ed policy leaders, why we're working in food insecurity, why we're working in mental health, why we're working in all these other issues, because lives are so much more complicated now, right?
Yeah, sure.
So to add to that conversation, several years ago, and I'd love for them to come bring a report on that to us about this, when industry was moving into Calcasieu Parish, Sowella and some of the LNGs partnered through the Community Foundation to put together a program that addressed just what the commissioner's talking about. They were recruiting, they needed heavy equipment operators, welders, to fulfill all these jobs in Southwest Louisiana. So a program was created that matched mentors, health care, transportation. They were going out to find able-bodied men and women to come to Sowella, to train in these programs, to then go into these $25, $30, $50 an hour jobs that were desperately needed to fulfill these construction jobs in the southwest part of the state. They found people who weren't working because they needed hearing aids. They found people who weren't working because, people with college degrees but needed the training of these technical jobs,
Right.
who had left the workforce for various reasons, childcare, did not have transportation, did not have care for a family member that they were now caring for.
Right.
And it was a complete program that the community also partnered in through the Community Foundation to make sure that they could address needs of folks, because we were desperate for workers to bring these industries in. And so I'd love for Sowella to come and at some point, and maybe Monty could, come and report on this program, how it all came together, because it was very unique. It brought together the entire community in Calcasieu and Cameron parishes to help people do just this. So Murphy Foster now, or MJ Foster now offers the financial aid component. What would it take in our communities, like here, like in North Louisiana, to put together address these other issues that adults are facing? They may already have a college degree. They may need this training to go into these high-paying healthcare jobs, but have other challenges, just like you were referring to. And so it's been piloted over there. This was pre-hurricanes, but it's been done. And there's no reason why we could not really innovate and replicate this with the help of our local communities, our universities, our community foundations, to see how we could continue to help people access what the state's now made available to them.
Yes, actually.
No, we are. We're doing that all over the state. And I'm sure Dr. June could talk about employers come to us with a need for a specific workforce. And I just attended a presentation at ACCT with River Parishes. They're in need of carbon capture is the next big thing over in River Parish. This industry is exploding. Well, they have no workforce. They're partnering with the parish community college. They'll be to train X number of workers in this field. The average salary, the gentleman reported, will be $85,000 a year. So that's happening at all of our community colleges, meeting specific workforce demands in their local communities. And as Dr. June said yesterday, he has 8 parishes, so you have 8 different workforce needs, multiple workforce needs. So yeah, that's that. But yes, I'm sure I'm aware of the program at Sowella, and that would be great.
Absolutely. And let me mention also, I want Dr. June to respond, but Dr. Craig talked yesterday to the Dean of Students here, and so she's going to be putting together the student success advisors for all of higher ed to talk through these issues. So we have a more comprehensive approach and awareness. So I wanted just to put that on the desk.
Yeah, I think the comment that I just want to make about the MJ Foster being a game changer for us, particularly the community college student system, is because it's very specific. Obviously, it's 21 years or older. You know, and I was talking to you all about the parish profiles yesterday. If you look at those parish profiles, you'll see that most of the parishes, when you look at the educational attainment or lack thereof, you'll see that it is the adult age population, and particularly in the parishes that SOCC serve, that either does not have a high school diploma, have a high school diploma, but no college education. And so when SOCC went out the Educational Opportunity Center grant through the U.S. Department of Education, we actually went after two. We went after what we refer to as kind of our Southern Regional Opportunity Center, which would have addressed the top portion of our service territory, and then the Southern Regional Opportunity Center addressed the bottom. Well, we actually got the grant for $2.26 million. 2 weeks ago, the U.S. Department of Ed, because we have just been killing the adult age population with that particular grant, they actually allowed us to use an additional $600,000 that they have, because it's such a great need. The MJ Foster program, complementing the Educational Opportunity Center, has allowed us to move that population faster. So it's a great compliment, because that's our narrative. Right? It may not be the same narrative for other institutions or other states, but it's our narrative, and this has been a game changer for us.
That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
So, obviously very pleased to see everything that we've seen so far today. What it says is that what we're doing as a board is, from a policy perspective, is being effectively implemented, and we're touching the population that we know can put us in a position to reach that goal as quickly as possible. As Regent Ewing spoke to, obviously, there's still some tweaks to get that completer number where we would like it to be, but we're definitely seem to be moving in the right direction. Hearing from SLCC, obviously, when we look at nearly half of the folks from the MJ Foster program, in this example, African American, you look at almost 80% are over 25 years old, right? And over 80% are 50,000 or less. I mean, that was why this program was developed.
That's right.
And so to see the follow through on the things that were done as a policy, I just know that in 9 years on the board, that's what you hope. It's not that we're completely in touch. And I want to make sure I say this, Regent staff, that is largely because of the information, because we can't make decisions without the information that you guys are bringing to us. So that is, I think that's a huge feather in you all's cap for the information you're bringing us to help us make these decisions. And then obviously, and most importantly, the folks that are on the ground implementing these things and touching the people. So, I mean, that is what a team effort is all about. And it's really exciting to see. So, is there a motion we've heard these recommendations, is there a motion? Regent Sterling?
I did want to ask Dr. Dunn a question, if I could. We have time?
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at chart 7. That's a good statistic or good data.
I'm sorry, which is chart?
Who was it on chart 7, the report?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just curious to know who was interviewed. Was it the 188 completers, or was it the 1,200 recipients of the award?
So let me look at chart 7. It's
on page 11.
Yeah, so we send it out to all 1,200. Yeah.
And then lastly, I just, in looking at the conclusion, just I see the report has to be submitted to various legislative bodies. Is the language sufficient, do you think, in the second last paragraph, last sentence, It does state that many of the applicants or the folks who got the award are still in the midst of their studies.
Yeah.
Do you think that's sufficient? I'd hate for them to think, kind of like Mr. Ewing, that out of 1,200 applicants, only 188 received certifications. But does that language need to be stronger? Or is it sufficient?
We can certainly strengthen the language to make it abundantly clear that the other 1,000 people are not just dropped out, but they're
in progress.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
still pursuing.
Right. Otherwise, it may be a little misleading because I think it's a lot better than, this is excellent, but it's even better than the 188.
Yeah, we'll
And it
fix
is a
that language to
baseline
make it
report,
clear.
so as he said, you get the flywheel
It's
moving,
living.
right? You gotta
Living.
get it going.
Yeah, we can't graduate people who didn't enroll. So
Exactly right.
This is the first.
Exactly right.
Got it.
Okay, we can certainly strengthen the senator too.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Right.
Is the MJ Foster Promise program, is it funded fully to
Yeah,
your?
it was refunded in the last session, so there's another $10.5 million this year. And
So it was 10.5. We've used 2.7 of that 10.5. They did another 10.5.
So Matthew will have to help me with that.
It's recurring dollars.
Perfect.
It gets pulled every year within the
21.
to get it up to 10.5 million, however much
Every year.
that's needed.
So there's 21 million, and over the last couple of years, 10.5, 10.5.
It's to get to 10.5.
Okay, to stay at 10.5.
So if we
Stay.
spent 2 million, the state refilled 8.5 of that.
Right.
And then the
I'm
last.
sorry.
The cap is
2
10.
million.
The cap is 10.5 every year. The cap is 10.5.
They're gonna make sure 10.5 is in there.
Right.
Okay,
And last year, there was.
I didn't get 20.
okay,
So they just refueled it.
okay.
That much. Yeah.
And last year, in the last session, they made some important changes to the way in which we could process the applications that were really important. Because part of the reason why in the first year we were not able to get, it was challenging to be able to do everything that was required and in the way in which students would be admitted to the programs. And so those changes were made in the last session to really streamline all of that. So and that's already having its effect too. You're seeing things move along at a better pace and stuff.
I was just wondering if this was something maybe our friends at LABI ought to be interested in supporting.
Oh, absolutely. All of the workforce piece. I can't remember. Is Doreen in here? I can't remember if they supported the bill. I think they did. We had cable. Many of them supported this bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in their report yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there a motion? Motion made by Regent Sterling, second made by Regent David. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much, Dr. Denley. So we'll now hear from Deputy Commissioner for Strategic Planning and Student Access, Dr. Suzanne Craig, who will be presenting our planning, research, and performance along with Regents Council Uma Submaranian.
Said it like a champ.
Good afternoon. We have we have 3 items for you on the consent agenda in the PRP. Well, we're not in committee, but in our portion of this committee of the whole. Our first item is academic licensure. All of these that you see here on the screen, there are 5 of them, and they are all renewals. Baton Rouge General Medical Center, this Fuller Theological Seminary, Saybrook University, Southern New Hampshire University, and the University of St. Augustine for health sciences. The second item on the consent agenda is the information surrounding our proprietary schools. We have 2 initial applications here for you today, clinical links in Metairie as well as Unimed Academy in New Orleans. Both of these schools have met all the conditions to be eligible for their initial license and have been approved by the Proprietary Schools Advisory Commission. In addition, we have 38 renewal applications for you today. And Courtney Britton wanted me to just kind of as a FYI let you know one of the reasons why the list is so long this month is because 2 of our institutions have multiple campuses across the state, and they wanted to get their renewals on the same cycle. And so this was the month to get all of their Blue Cliff College as well as, I'll look at my notes, Accelerated Academy helps them to get on the same cycle. So the third item up for your consideration today, I'm going to ask Dr. Subramanian to talk about approval of initial rulemaking of our councils, advisory councils, and commissions. Uma?
Good afternoon. Act 393 of 2023, just passed a few months ago, has 2 major amendments to the open meetings laws. One is mandatory, one is optional. The mandatory portion requires ADA accommodations to any member of the public to be able to view or participate in virtual meetings of public bodies. And also it requires ADA accommodations to members of the public bodies themselves, such as any member of this board. If they have an ADA recognized disability, they can request to participate virtually. So that is the mandatory component. The optional component is any advisory body with no decision-making power, any public body that meets currently, an in-person meeting is eligible to meet virtually if they have no decision-making authority, purely advisory function, and if they meet 6 or more times a year. So all we are asking is for you to authorize the commissioner to initiate the rulemaking process by publishing our initial rules, and after 90 days the rules will become permanent, and we are also in the process of trying to operationalize the rules. So by the time the rules become permanent, sometime in January of 2024, we'll be ready to implement them.
So the advisory committee is the one that reviews all these requests for relicensing. Is that correct? Am I not following that?
Well, I would say for the proprietary schools advisory commission, they meet face to face because they make decisions.
So this is just automatic.
So I'm thinking Student Success Council.
Right.
We have some other councils.
And I know we've done this before, and we've got a lot of them here. But somewhere there was a review that these people asking for relicensing.
You're separating the 2 issues, the licensing renewals versus this open meetings. I think he's thinking that open meetings relate to the license renewal process.
No, because the Proprietary Schools Advisory Commission makes decisions, they have to meet face to face. They're not going to be a part of this because it's an open meeting law. Am I saying this right?
This rulemaking is separate and apart from anything relative to the licensing she just discussed. This is about.
They're not related. We have 3 separate items on we have academic licensure is 1 item on the consent agenda. Proprietary schools is 1 item on the consent agenda. The 3rd item is so that we can initiate rulemaking for the open meetings law.
For all the Board of Regents
For all commissions.
For all the advisory bodies placed within the Board of Regents that have no decision-making power.
Correct.
But I want to go back to I think Regent Ewing's question is, even though it's consent agenda,
right,
the license renewals and proprietary have been vetted through our normal process.
That is correct.
That's
what he wanted to know.
Thank you for explaining.
I was following you. I'm tracking.
Good. Anything else? Okay. Well, members, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion made by Regent Gill, second. Second by Regent Creed. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. All right, so our last item, thank you all, ladies. Our last item is audit. We will have Christian Bork from Post Wait and Netterville, our resident, and Matthew Labriere. Proposed amendment to the internal audit plan for fiscal year 2024. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The audit agenda item is in response to a change in the standards by the American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. The legislative auditor, in response to this, sent a letter to all state agencies communicating the risk of material misstatement of financial statements as a result of fraud, and asked that we as an agency take appropriate steps to address this risk. So I'm joined by Kristen Burke from Post Wait and Netterville to discuss the steps that our internal auditor will take to address any potential risk.
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, the letter that was sent out from the legislative auditor speaks to this particular risk, which is basically an inherent risk that has been there. There's been a change in the standards that has required them to make the communication to those in charge of governance. So as the risk has been there, we don't know that there's a need to completely change what our audit plan is, but we did think that it was appropriate for us to add some procedures to our internal audit plan to account for those. So in response to that communication from the legislative auditor, we proposed the addition of testing of processes and controls related to the payment approval processes. This would include leveraging some data analytics of expenditures to let us select a sample of transactions for testing. And we would test those to assess the payment, that if the payments followed the appropriate approval process and that supporting documentation was maintained and in alignment with the policy requirements. So we would add those testing procedures in addition to what we've already outlined. Once we begin the wrap-up of any of these procedures, as well as the ongoing IT security assessment, which is currently underway, we can address where we are budget-wise and discuss whether or not it requires us to do a change in what our original audit plan was. Any questions?
Okay.
So the senior staff recommends that the approval of the proposed amendment to the audit plan for fiscal year 2024.
Okay, so we've seen the proposed amendment, so are there any questions? Anybody want to ask, add?
Lots of questions.
Go ahead.
So Kristen, in as much as the risk was always there, and your recommendation is to add testing against the procedures, my question would be, do we think the procedures, you're going to test against whether we're complying with our procedures?
Correct.
My question would be, do our procedures protect against the risk to the best ability given the size and staff of this organization?
So through the performance of our testing, I think we would also address that. We're going to look at it process-wise and then also test for operational effectiveness.
So you're going to test for compliance and actually what the procedure is?
Yeah, we would give our recommendation if we feel like there's a gap in the controls in place.
Understood.
To address the risk.
And Regent Solomon, this is something that the legislative auditor has tested in the past as they go through the audit, and we have not had any findings on this. And so, they do test our policy as well. This is just another way to strengthen what we're doing in response to the letter to show that we do take it seriously.
How long ago was it that they last did it? You said
we went through, it was part of our audit last year, I believe, in the single audit.
Okay. So, do I have a motion to approve the proposed amendment? All right, Regent Gill, second by Regent Solomon. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you all. We'll now move on to our reports and recommendations by our own Commissioner Reed.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me echo your kudos to our host today, being on campus with Dr. Savoy and his team as we celebrate 125 years and homecoming and R1, but just excellence. Dr. Savoy, thank you so much. SLCC, also #1. So there's a theme there with the #1, right? Also #1, and thank you for the amazing work that you're doing. We yesterday had the LaSTEM conference here, 700 plus educators, K-12, business and industry and others, kids, robotics, esports, lots of energy and lots of buzz. So I thank the board members who were able to stop by, but we continue every year to try to build our STEM ecosystem. And we have phenomenal partners, so I wanted to also give a shout out to the Regents staff and team for the great work in helping coordinate with all of the partners to make these this Lafayette visit such a great visit. So thank you all so much on that. As Colin said, they're rocking it in this region, and there's such integration and talent development, so we're proud of that. This month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As you know, I'm chair of the State Cybersecurity Commission, so I'll mention a couple of highlights. 2 weekends ago, I had a chance to go to the State Police Cyber Camp. There were middle school kids there with cyber professionals from OTS, GOSEP, and State Police. So they did cyber forensics. They had to solve a crime through cyber, and so they had a ball doing that. So I got to talk to lots of parents and encourage more kids to go into STEM. We have had 2 days of regional training on the higher education side with our IT directors and others with the state, trying to make sure that our data is protected and secure. As you know, cyber challenges are every day, every minute challenge for us. So thanks to our team and the State Police and GOSEP teams for the regional cyber training. Those were held in, where's Matthew? Alexandria and Thibodeau. So thanks to the LSUA and Nichols for hosting us there. Tomorrow, Regent Warner will be with LSU for the ribbon cutting ceremony for the LSU Security Operations Center. You saw some cyber requests in our budget. So the SOC is unique because it not only provides added protection to the higher education data systems, but it also puts students who want to be cyber warriors at the table learning how to detect cyber challenges. So we're very excited about the Cyber Operations Center ribbon cutting tomorrow with TechStream and Splunk to meet the cyber workforce shortage of 750,000 openings. So we're looking forward to that, and it's a very cool logo as well with Mike and Tiger.
Yeah.
Had an opportunity to visit with Governor John Bel Edwards as he wraps up his administration, reflecting on what we accomplished in education and what's still to be done. As you see, he's rocking his Regents polka dot socks for the conversation, but this is an upcoming podcast, really a great conversation. As you know, he's been a great supporter of higher education, ran for governor because he said he wanted to stop the cuts in higher ed. So more to come when that link comes out. Celebration of the staff for 2 great awards. Tristan and his team will be leading the Strong Start to Finish. So this grant, which is $230,000, will accelerate the work that you heard in the Momentum Moment. More dollars for co-requisite math and English to move this work at scale across our state. And then the JET Foundation is focused on mental health. And so you know we received 17 million plus from LDH, so we're going to partner with this, and it's a community of practice for higher education focused on how to address mental health issues. So congratulations to Dr. Allison Smith and Dr. Denley and their teams for that. Of course, Sam mentioned new leaders on the block, so we are looking forward to welcoming Dr. Johnson at UNO. Congratulations to Dr. Carlson, who has moved into the chancellor position. He was vice chancellor, Dr. June? Vice chancellor for workforce, but now leading North Shore. And Tristan and I had a great conversation, as well as Carrie, with Dr. Xavier Cole, who is the president of Loyola. And his investiture is in a week or so. It's on my calendar that you all have. So we're looking forward to welcoming new leaders and getting them fully indoctrinated into the momentum work and having them work with us. Finally, Mr. Chair and board members, as you know, we're welcoming a new administration, and so we're putting together additional materials so that whoever is named as Chief of Staff, Commissioner, Education Policy Advisor to the new governor, that we have at the ready materials for them that reflect on budget, capital outlay, policy work that's underway, horizon issues, to ensure that we can work diligently and effectively with them. So with that, Mr. Chair, that completes my report.
Okay.
Oh, happy birthday, Colby, my former governor's fellow in the back. Congratulations to you, Colby.
Happy birthday. All right. So, members, do we have any other items to bring before our other business, rather? So we received the proposed calendar of meetings. Let's move to that. For 2024 in our material, we need a motion to approve the calendar. Can I have a motion? All right. Motion by Regent Gill. Second by Regent Creed. Any discussion? I was about to, she just jumped over you. Any discussion, any objection? Hearing none, motion passes. So y'all please save those dates on your calendar. Looking forward, we do not meet in November. December convening will be a 2-day meeting in Baton Rouge. Please mark that down. December 12th is the board development session that Tuesday evening. That during the day it'll be at the Claiborne building, and that evening the LSU Lady Tigers play the McNeese
Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Cowgirls.
Cowgirls.
Cow people. The cowgirls.
Cow people.
Watch it there.
So, followed by the board reception is in the PMAC with that game. So that'll be a great process. So on Wednesday, the 13th, the joint Bessie meeting will be followed by our own Board of Regents committee and board meeting in the Thomas Jefferson room. So we will obviously give everybody more information on that one. So
we will attend the game?
Yes, we're going to the game.
You can wear gold, and then
You color
are
both.
neutral.
Right.
That's right.
You wear gold.
Wear gold.
You got it on both sides. Gold and blue.
Blue and gold.
All right. We got blue and gold.
Go purple.
We got purple and gold. Exactly. So I'm not. We're not. We're supposed to be a partisan organization.
All right. I'll wear just
right. Okay. Nonpartisan organization. Nonpartisan organization.
And I'll give you the pronunciations of
right. I was about to say. Right. I'm not partisan. I'm for everybody. Right. Okay. I'm for everybody. So, is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Regent Sterling. All right. Second. David said I'm not speaking up. Right, by David, right? Okay. So, look, it's only taken me 1 year and 8 months to get the process down like Regent Meir has. He has it down. He taught me early on. He was like, he gave up trying to teach me how to go through this process. It's only taken me 1 year and 9 months, but I finally, not in the year and 10 months, finally got it. So, that being said, we're adjourned. Thank you all.